At its inception, the State Fair was located off of Elmwood Avenue. At the turn of the 20th century, the fair had outgrown the Elmwood location, and in 1904 it moved to the Rosewood Fairgrounds with plenty of room to expand.
Beginning in the early 1900s, the carnival activities were a carnival operator that the fair would just book with. They would bring the rides and some of the side shows, the freak shows, the girly shows, those kinds of things. The grandstand was a huge event which had activities at night generally, starting with performances, and there's some images of people like Gene Autry performing at the grandstand. Musical groups constantly were doing that. And there was a great photograph of President Taft in a wonderful vintage car. The horse racing has been a part of the fair since the very beginning. It lasted until about the 1920s and 30s, and it began to go away. People weren't as interested in racing horses as they were cars. The car racing turned into stunt shows, so those were always part of the fair. The fair reflects what's going on in South Carolina, both socially and culturally. The Colored State Fair started because the African Americans were not being treated properly, and so they started their own fair. And so when you reach the period of civil rights, I think it plays itself out in the fair. If you look at the organization that ran the Colored State Fair, its initial name was the Colored State Fair Association. In the early 1950s, the term colored was no longer acceptable, so they changed the name of it to the Palmetto State Fair.
Through his research on the social and cultural impacts of the fair, Dr. Stroup found a few interesting surprises.
There was a petrified man found in the Saluda River above Columbia in the 1890s, and it was attested to by a whole series of doctors, and they created a flyer, a poster. The fair used to advertise using posters, and so it was at the fair 1 or 2 years. They eventually had it tested by some German scientists who determined that it wasn't a petrified man, that it actually was Portland cement. Beginning in the 1870s, there was a state ball which was held principally in the State House chambers of the House of Representatives on the Thursday night of State Fair Week. So the state ball became a debutante ball by the late 1890s. It was the social event of the year in the state. It continued through 1917.
This ball, along with special horse racing and premiums being handed out, led to the moniker Big Thursday. However, a lot of people associate this term with a very different event.
Beginning in the 1890s, Carolina and Clemson began playing football on the fairgrounds. They played every year from 1909 through 1959, and it was called Big Thursday.
The sights and sounds may change a little each year, but Dr. Stroup found a common theme.
I think the main thing the State Fair means to South Carolinians is it's an opportunity to get together and celebrate the history of the state, as well as the agricultural and industrial facilities which we have in the state.
And we're off and running, ladies and gentlemen.